There you go.
I call to order the regular meeting of Tiffin City Council for August 16th, 2021. This evening will be led in the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Councilman Perkins.
Thank you. Join me in Lord's Prayer, please. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who
trespass against us.
and lead us not into
Temptation,
but deliver us
from
from
evil.
evil.
Thine is the kingdom, power, glory, forever. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. I'll ask Mr. Clerk Ann Forrest to please call the roll.
Councilman Perkins.
here.
Councilman Perry.
Here.
Councilwoman Boyle. Councilman Gillig.
Here.
Councilwoman Yanatuno. Here. Councilman Jones.
Present.
Councilman Leopard.
Here.
Let the record show that 6 of the 7 council members were present. Do we have any petitions?
There are no petitions, Mr. President.
Thank you. Hopefully, everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes from our August 2nd regular meeting and our August 9th special meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented without objection. Reports of the committees. Finance Committee, Councilman Gillig.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Law and Community Planning. Anyone from Law and Community? Councilman Perry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. A Law and Community Planning Committee meeting was held on August 9th, 2021 in the council committee room. In attendance were council members Bridget Boyle, Steve Leopard, and Dan Perry. Additionally, John Kirshner, Mayor Montz, City Engineer Matt Watson, Zoning Inspector Dan Brickner, Law Director Brent Howard, and City Administrator Dale Thornton were in attendance. Bridget Boyle called this meeting to order at 3:59 p.m. and announced the purpose of the meeting is to discuss John Kirshner's request to extend the C2 zoning district to include the properties located at 24 and 25 Adams Street to permit the use of a bed and breakfast as well as any other business to come before the committee. At this time, Councilwoman Boyle asked Mr. Kirshner to provide an overview of his request and the reasoning for presenting this to council. Mr. Kirshner explained that he owns 24 and 25 Adams Street and previously requested the alley vacation between 19 and 25 Adams via the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewer Committee in order to make this a continuous property. When Mr. Kirshner realized that the property at 25 Adams no longer has certificate of occupancy, this prohibited his business from operating at bed and breakfast at this location due to the current city code. Lenora Livingston previously operated Fort Ball Bed and Breakfast when she owned this property. However, a zoning change occurred and Mr. Kirshner's business bought this property in which the B&B no longer stayed active. Mr. Kirshner's business does not qualify for non-conforming using at a residential property. Therefore, he is requesting the C2 zoning district to be extended to his property in order to operate a bed and breakfast. At this time, City Engineer Matt Watson presented 2 maps to the committee and asked Mr. Kirshner to clarify exactly which area he is proposing for his properties to be rezoned. Discussion followed between Mr. Kirshner and Matt Watson of the specified locations in the presented maps. Matt explained there are 2 ways to request a zoning amendment, either an introduction from a member of City Council or having a petition signed by all the property owners within the boundary of 200 feet of the areas being proposed for the change. In the map presented to the committee outlining the requested area of the zoning change, Matt confirmed that Mr. Kirshner's business does not own 100% of that area that is being requested. Therefore, other property owners would be affected. The Director of Law, Brent Howard, stated since other individuals own properties within the requested area, these individuals should be aware of this potential change to opinion prior to of this being introduced by City Council as they are critical stakeholders. As Mr. Kirshner has encountered issues in the past with getting signatures from all property owners within 200 feet, Matt Watson recommended Mr. Kirschner to ask for signatures within the specific area to be rezoned as opposed to all property owners within 200 feet as long as council was comfortable with the approach. Mr. Kirschner explained that this is the area he had issues with receiving signatures in the past, as many of these individuals do not reside in Tiffin. Brent Howard recommended Mr. Kirschner to identify who the statutory agent is related to the LLC properties he is struggling to track down for the required signatures. Once these signatures are obtained and submitted to council, the joint public hearing will notify all property owners within the area, not just the immediate block of properties Mr. Kirschner will be required to receive formal signatures from. At this time, Councilman Perry stated that this approach seems to be a fair compromise to pursue regarding this request. Councilman Leopard agreed since the joint public hearing will provide formal notice to all the property owners this will affect. Once all signatures are obtained by Mr. Kirschner, he will submit them to council and this committee to reconvene for review. With no further business, the committee adjourned at 4:19.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Perry? Councilman Leopard?
I think we should note that Mr. Kirschner was representing the property owner, that this is not his property.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Materials and equipment, Councilman Jones.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilman Perry.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recreation and Public Property, Councilman Perkins.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Street Sidewalks and Sewers, Councilman Leopard.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a report. A meeting was held in the Hayes Council Meeting Room on August 3rd, 2021, starting at 4:33 p.m. Its purpose was to review and discuss the recommendations of the mayor in regards to legislation number 21-14, creating a City of Tiffin Municipal Arts Commission and adopting the initial set of guidelines. To approve legislation for 21-19, the new 3-year contract with the City of Tiffin and TSEP, and any other business to come before the committee. Attending were committee members myself, Steve Leopard and Bridget Boyle, Mayor Aaron Montz and Amy Reinhardt and Nick Dutro from TSEP were also in attendance. Mike Pinkston, who helped author the guidelines for the Arts Commission, also attended. Mayor Montz briefly explained the 2 items under consideration. We first discussed 21-14, the creation of the Arts Commission. All committee members had read the suggested criteria and felt it was well done. The only stipulation we would add is members of the commission must live in Tiffin or own a business in Tiffin. A motion was made by Councilmember Leopard for the Director of Law to provide legislation for the creation of the City of Tiffin Arts Commission and the adoption of the suggested guidelines for this committee. Councilmember Boyle seconded, and the motion carried on a vote of 3-0. In regards to 21-19, the approval of our ongoing agreement with TSEP. It is a 3-year contract. Our existing contract with TSEP expired June 30th, 2021. There are no changes from the current contract other than combining the 2 contracts into one. The mayor asked that we consider suspending the 3-reading rule because we are currently operating without an approved contract, and we will be doing that this evening. A motion was made by Councilmember Leopard for the Director of Law to create legislation for our 3-year contract with TSEP. It was seconded by Councilmember Boyle. This motion carried on a vote of 3-0. With no further action needed at this time and no other committee business to discuss, our meeting adjourned at 4:59 p.m. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilwoman Yanatuno? Okay, thank you. Does anyone see a need for a committee of the whole meeting? Okay, Mayor?
No, but I would ask that you hold the first 2 weeks of November because we'll have the budget to you at the first meeting in November.
Okay.
So please, I know it seems like it's a ways away, but if you all could try to start looking ahead now and figuring out within the next meeting or 2 about what date you can meet for that budget hearing that we do, I'd appreciate it because I don't want to have to suspend or have special meetings the week of Christmas and New Year's. I don't know about any of you, but I don't think you want to.
Okay. Reports of the officers is honored Mayor Aaron D. Montz.
Thank you, Mr. President. First this evening, I would like to extend my condolences to the Gillig family. Ben, your mother is a great individual. We appreciate you being here tonight with all of us, and sincere condolences to all of you. The financial update, I did get that out to council today where we stood as of last Friday. We are off to a great start in the month of August. We all know that things really declined last month due to income tax reporting changes from the last couple of years with the coronavirus pandemic. So far, month to date, we are ahead of where we were last year by $214,000, which is about 62% ahead of last year at this exact time. In fact, we only have about $300,000, less than $300,000 of revenue to obtain now for the whole second half of this month. That will put us ahead of where we were last year. So very, very good financial position for the month. And for the year overall, we're doing phenomenal. Nearly $941,000 ahead of where we were last year at this time, which is an increase of just under 15%. So we're in a very, very solid financial position with the city right now. And then, of course, we had the good information that we found out from the census last week. The declining trend of Tiffin population since the 1970 census. It appears that it's been reversed. We've had an increase of more than 400 residences in the last couple, or 400 residents in the last couple of years here in the community, which is just wonderful. Really surprised me to look at the data from other cities and see folks that we outperformed, including the big metropolis of Findlay that we always like to compare ourselves to. They actually saw a population decrease of about 2.3%. Which was just incredible because the census had expected them to have grown. Fremont, I hate to do it with our representative here, they were down almost 5%. I'm going to do a little bragging. David, you can smile away back there because you're part of the team here that's helped accomplish this. But really, we don't want to see population decline in Ohio, period. But it is nice when we look at our peers, and David had put out a wonderful blog release at TCEP talking about it, that the only contiguous neighbor of ours that increased was Upper Sandusky. The rest all saw decreases. So really just very exciting for us here in Tiffin to see us continue to succeed and really reverse the trend of what a lot of small towns in Ohio are facing, and to see Tiffin have our first period of growth since the early 70s, 50 plus years now. So thank you to all of you, because all of you have played a role in that with City Council, with their economic development team, David here, and especially folks like Rich, not to date him at all, but he's been around for a little while now with economic development and other things, and the groundwork that he and future mayor or previous mayors, previous city councils laid have gotten us to this point to reverse that trend. And with the known housing units that we know have been announced, Tiffin Point, I know they're getting very close to moving in of the next stage of like 55 units. We've got 2 large condominium developments that have been announced. There's another housing project that's smaller, but I think still somewhere around 10 or 12 units that's being worked on. So that will be announced in the near future. I think we're only going to see this trend increase. And in fact, what really kind of disappoints me was I think COVID's honestly what really hurt us from getting a more accurate picture, because we had all the plans in place to make a real accurate count for students this year at the universities, which are supposed to be counted here. And what happened, they were all sent home before the census information went out. So even if we miss 10% of students, that's 300 or 400 more people that should have been counted into our data, even if we only missed 10% of the college students here. So we all know that that increase is actually much larger than what the census data most likely showed, but we'll take it nonetheless. It was still very, very good news compared to what everyone around here had seen. So we're very proud of the census returns and the track that we are on here in the community. A couple of quick updates for City Council on some projects. The milling work will begin on South Washington Street. So you may recall the entire length of South Washington from the bridge south to St. Joe's Church is being repaved. They will begin milling that Wednesday of this week, weather permitting. That is a second/third shift project. They will start at 7 p.m. and work until the morning. They'll quit just before the school traffic, around 6, 7 in the morning. That's why you see the barrels up already downtown, telling folks they can't park overnight on the street. We're doing that to try to have the least amount of impact as possible on our businesses downtown. We know there's no perfect time because now we have more people living downtown than have probably lived downtown in 60, 70 years. But the downside of that is they will be disrupted with noise in the evening as we're out there milling. The positive side of that is We probably have about 90% of our foot traffic and vehicular traffic occurring in downtown Tiffin during the daytime, and we will avoid that by doing the milling overnight. If all goes well and they're able to do that this week, they hope to be in as soon as next week, either Monday, Tuesday, overnight type of thing, paving again. So we're hopeful by close to the end of next week that there at least will be that solid base coat down and return things to fairly normal to come in and get that top fine coat that makes for the smooth driving. So apologize in advance if council starts getting complaints about loud noises in the evening downtown because it's bound to happen with the work beginning. Then Councilman Jones, the work in your neighborhood near Hudson Street with the OPWC project, they have nearly completed all of the pre-construction work like the curb ramps, the alley approaches, et cetera. Those are all nearly completed. They're planning to get in there and pave in probably mid to late September. So probably around Heritage Festival time for, I know we had Hudson was the main road and then all the feeder streets off of that like Clyde, Nash and some of the others. So that will occur in mid to late September. And then Matt Watson let me know this morning that they've completed the field work and they've nearly finalized all of the streets to be paved for 2022 already. They'll be coming into council yet this year so that we can pass that under the normal 3 readings. And then as soon as next year begins, he can get that project bid out. Because if you recall, last couple of years, we've got some of the best prices we've ever got on our street paving because we're like that first community that bids things. So Matt Watson, being the ever thorough person that he is, will be in here and make sure that you all have it ready to go so he can send out packets the first week of January for our street paving next year. So look for that in the near future. And then while it's not in the city, it's going to affect a lot of folks. The entire intersection of 224 and 53 will be closed for at least 12 days, if not longer, while ODOT is going to rebuild that entire intersection and add turn lanes in. It's going to create a mess. Please don't call us. It's not our work. It's not in the city, but we're trying to let everyone know because it's not going to be fun. But that will start on September 20th. ODOT had originally informed us that they were going to do it during Heritage Festival, and we convinced them that that would be a disaster because of our downtown shutdown. So September 20th through at least the first part of October, it will be closed. If they get it done on time, it could go longer. But that's something everyone needs to be aware of. It's not a one-lane situation. It will be completely closed because they have to excavate everything, and they're literally putting in extra lanes on both sides so folks can turn more safe because of all the accidents that occur at that stoplight. So that's your early heads up. We have begun the process to work on a similar process of what we did with community branding, but with city, county, and economic development chamber, et cetera, websites. The city had our website redone. It seems like it was just a few years ago, but it was, I think, about year number 2 or 3 while I was in office. We're having more and more problems with it now that everybody's using phones, whereas back then it was still a lot of folks using computers. It's not mobile friendly. So we're working to hopefully get a good package deal that by buying in bulk and all of us having our websites redone with a very similar look and feel like we did with branding, that will get it at a much better rate than if we all went out for our own proposals. So we've begun that process. I don't know if we'll actually get to much any of it yet this year, but that's something you can look forward to most likely being included in the budget next year, is to get us through that, get the website built, but also get it to be one that's very comprehensive so that we can make changes to it very simply versus now we have to pick up the phone or send. It's very burdensome right now. We want it to be simplified so that any of us can pick it up and make changes very quickly to fix things on there. And then, of course, to have it look much better than it currently does with a lot better and up-to-date information. I want to congratulate Flooring by Michael on their ribbon cutting that was held last week. They are at the location just what would be north of where Pat Catan's was at Westgate. I also want to thank the Seneca Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Services, as well as the 2 universities for partnering for the Welcome Back flags in downtown Tiffin. There was no tax dollars involved in that. It was all done by the universities and the chamber, taking care of the expenses and the placement of the flags. They'll be up for a few weeks to welcome the students and their families back to the community. I just think it's a cool little step towards becoming that college town that we always talk about. And then I also want to thank Bryce Kuhn and Mason Correll at the Parks Department. The Thursday night tunes were such a big hit, they decided to add 3 more concerts in. Thanks also to First Federal Bank about, they extended their sponsorship to make this happen. So there will be 3 more events with concerts on August 26th, September 2nd, and September 9th. And then I'm just going to let everyone know about the events. We have dog days at the pool, so that's take your dog and swim at the Tiffin City Pool on the 17th and the 19th of this month, which is Tuesday and Thursday, out at the Tiffin Pool. And then the pool will be shut for the remainder of the year. The Summer Band Bash, which is Tiffin Columbian, Tiffin Calvert, Heidelberg University, and Tiffin University are performing at the East Green this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's a free concert open to the public. They kind of do it Battle of the Band style. If you haven't been there, it's really neat. They get the place hopping. I can hear them all the way from where I live at my house. They get playing so much, and they really have a good time. So if you're available Wednesday the 18th, 7, show up. The Taste of Tiffin is the next day after that at the Tiffin Seneca Public Library parking lot over near the East Green. 5 p.m. is the beginning of that. All sorts of Tiffin restaurants and businesses are having treats, snacks, samples of their food. It's always been a great event. We're glad that that's able to come back. East Green concert this coming Saturday, the 21st at 8 p.m. The next day, the 22nd at 2:30 p.m. is a Around the Town Welcome Back event for all the university students and also open to the general public. Business is set up all over the RTA lot downtown where folks can come meet with them, find out what services they offer, what products they sell. And then last but not least, the downtown Tiffin garage sales are Saturday, October the 28th, Saturday, August the 28th, almost all day long. So if anyone says there's nothing going on in Tiffin, it took me about as long to get through the events as it did, I think, my whole report tonight. So there are a lot of things coming up in the month of August in Tiffin, Ohio. I'm sure I probably missed some, but I did the best I can. But come out, enjoy the good weather, and make a day of it, an evening, whatever. So with that, that concludes my report. If there are any questions before we get into, we do have Representative Click here this evening, and I'm going to give him some time because I know we want to have a discussion with him. But if there are any questions unrelated to that matter, now would be a good time.
Councilman Leopard.
Out of the corner of my eye last week, I thought I saw the city electrician working downtown installing an antenna. Is that for downtown Wi-Fi, maybe?
I don't have the first clue. I don't know if Dale would know anything. Dale?
Yeah, it looked like he was placing an antenna.
Whereabout was it?
It would be on before you get to Perry Street on Washington.
It wasn't for Wi-Fi.
Okay.
It was on Washington, though. I don't know.
Like I said, it's out of the corner of my eye, but I did know it was an antenna.
Was that your good eye?
Interesting. Well, we'll ask Mike. We see him all the time down here, but I don't know. The downtown Wi-Fi's been up and running well. And so I don't think unless something went bad or got struck or whatever, but I can't think of what it would be.
Anyone else?
Okay. Well, without further ado, Representative Gary Click is here this evening. He received our resolution that we had sent down and he reached out and wanted to know the first opportunity that he could come up here. So I know that we're all appreciative of you not delaying whatsoever and coming right up here. We really appreciate that, Representative. And obviously you've read our resolution, so I don't need to reiterate it. So I think we'll turn the floor over to you, let you have some comments, and then we can dialogue here if council wishes.
Well, to be more accurate, I've not yet received the resolution.
Oh.
But I did read the paper, and that's how I knew about it. And as you know, I don't like to let things linger out there. I like to solve problems immediately and as quickly as I can. So, President Fode, Mayor Mons, and esteemed council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's my privilege to be here, my privilege to represent you in Columbus. And I would say I saw the census data as well. I'm not a bit surprised that you grew so much with all the great leadership that you have here with TSEP, the chamber, with David Zach, Bryce Riggs, and yourselves, all those who are in this room. Doesn't surprise me a bit. I won't tell Mayor Sanchez, you threw him under the bus?
Oh, I'll tell him next time I see him. Danny and I have a big rivalry, so,
I'm sure you will, but I wanted to save that moment for you so you can savor it.
oh, I can't wait.
And I want you to be able to savor. I don't want to take the joy out of it for you.
I appreciate it. Sneak attack, that's good. I like it.
But the reality of it is that just shows other communities in this area what can be done. And I think that, although you have that little friendly rivalry, it does challenge everyone else to do a little bit better. And I want you to know that when I'm in Columbus and anywhere else, I brag on Tiffin. I love what I see taking place here. And as I said, it's an honor to serve you. So like I said, I've not received the resolution. I don't know when it was actually sent, but when I got the word, like I said, I just want to try to nip things in the bud as quickly as I can. One of the things that I've said from the very beginning is I promised access, and I plan to live out that commitment. I will say that you don't necessarily have to pass a resolution to get me to come. You've got my phone number. You can call me. I'll give all of you my personal cell phone number. You can call me anytime. I'll be here. I'll answer your questions. I'll do whatever I can because we're a team, and we have to work together as a team to make things work. So what I will tell you is that I was not in the weeds on HB 168, which is the bill that's in question. I was not the author. I was a co-sponsor along with many others on that bill. I was not on the committee, the finance committee that it went through either, but I did support it. And so as we, I'm just here to try to provide for you the answers that I can, give you a clear understanding of my thinking process and then some of the research that I've done following up afterwards in that process. Let me just ask you a quick question. Did anyone here read the bill? Okay, so no one's read the bill. Did anyone read the LSC analysis of the bill?
I read portions of it.
You read portions of the analysis. Thank you for doing that. Anyone read the proponent testimony or watch it on the Ohio channel? Okay. I would ask if anyone read the opponent testimony, but there was no opponent testimony. So no one came and showed up to oppose this bill. Not the Ohio Mayor's Alliance. They didn't show up. They were silent on this, as was the Ohio Municipal League. When this passed out of the House Finance Committee, it passed out unanimously. When it passed out of the Senate Finance Committee, it passed out unanimously. And the reason I tell you that and say these things is because there were no red flags for me. There was nothing that said, hey, don't do this. This is a bad idea, or this is going to hurt us, or this is going to hurt someone. You know, we have hundreds of bills, and I try to familiarize myself with each one as much as I can. But my understanding, and I think it's the correct understanding, is we are a gateway for the federal funds that are coming down to the local communities. It goes through the state and from the state to us. And basically, we were making an appropriation so that you can get your money. Now, trust me, I totally understand your disappointment. If you expect to be getting 3.45 million, and then you find out you're getting 1.8 million, who would not be disappointed? I respect your wisdom and that you didn't spend that money because and inherently implied in that is you knew that there could be some changes to that and how that took place and how that affected. So that was a very wise thing of you to do. And again, I understand your disappointment, but NFIB, Ohio Chamber, and everyone who testified in favor of this bill. So there were no red flags for me to say, hey, wait a minute, let's put on the brakes. And in fact, when it passed out of the Senate, it passed out of the Senate unanimously 32-0. And when it passed out of the House of Representatives, it came out 79-6. And so that just tells you, and there are former mayors who are serving. Former city council members, former trustees, former people of every branch of local office. So there was no one that had any red flags. And I never heard of or saw any red flags on this until after it passed. And of course, there's nothing that I can do retroactively. What I did do, and this bill was introduced on March 2nd, by the way, passed out on July the 25th. But what I did do is, since you brought this up, I went back and I did do some research. And if you will know, well, if you go back, and all this that I'm sharing with you is publicly available, but if you were to look at lines 89 through 93 of the bill as it passed out, it says, Well, let me just back up to line 87. The foregoing appropriation item 042526, coronavirus local fiscal recovery, shall be used by the Director of Budget and Management to distribute funding to non-entitlement units of local government in Ohio, including cities, villages, townships, on a population basis in accordance with the provisions of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, publication L number 117-2, and consistent with guidance used under the act. And what that basically means is that what we do has to follow the federal rules. So when you receive money from us, it always comes with guidelines. And you know that, and you study those guidelines, you follow those guidelines. Well, when it comes to us from the feds, we have to do the same thing. And the federal government has classified cities, villages, townships as non-entitlement units. That's their classification. That is not ours. I understood, and Mayor Mons and I had some conversations, and we converse frequently, and kind of the thought was, well, why didn't you take that money from the counties instead of taking it from us? That was not an option for us, because non-entitlement units are classified as places with populations of 50,000 or less, and the federal government classifies the city of Tiffin and the townships as NEUs. That's not my classification. That was not the classification that was put on by Representative Loychick or Representative Frazier, who are the authors of this bill. That's the federal government's classification. And so we cannot, and we do not have the authorization to change that. And so basically what this amounts to is we're following the law and the guidance of the federal government as it was sent down to us. And that's how we are applying things in this position. And again, just to repeat and recap, my first temptation was in the last meeting. I know that, or just prior to this, I know a lot of people kept deferring to Dan Perry, so I thought about just blaming it on him. But but he didn't look like he was ready for that. So we are doing what we're told to do by the federal government. Again, I was not in the weeds on that. Some of this is research that I did afterwards to try to give you a good explanation, a reasonable explanation. And that's what I'm trying to do. So any ideas or insinuations that Senator Reineke or myself would do something secretly or in the cloak of darkness or to hurt the city of Tiffin, that's just not true. That would never be true of either one of us. Both of us love this community, and we understand sometimes there are competing interests back and forth between one government entity and another government entity. And my door, I want y'all to know this, my door is always open to each and every one of you. Call me anytime, preferably call me ahead of time when I can do something. And I'll listen to everyone, and I'll try to come up with the best decision that's going to further our community. Because that's why I ran for this office. That's why I'm serving. I'm doing this because I want to contribute to my community. I want to contribute to your community. I want to give my best, and I know that that requires collaboration. Listen, I never have pretended like I know everything, and I'm not going to start now. You understand some things about what happened here in Tiffin much better than I do. And I want your input. I ask for your input. I crave your input. I'll seek your input, and I'll certainly receive your input. That doesn't mean I can always do everything that you want me to do or ask me to do, just like you can't do everything. But it sort of goes back to the same issue that you had, that you were talking about, Councilman Jones, that somebody contacted you after the fact. And that's kind of where I am as well, as being contacted after the fact on this. So I wish you certainly the best. I'll be happy to answer. As I said, I may not have all the answers to your questions, but I'll do the best to answer any questions that you have. If I don't have the answer today, I'll look it up and I'll find out.
First of all, Representative Quick, I want to echo the mayor's thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with us tonight. And
Yes, sir.
to give us a reasonable explanation about what happened. So it's nice to have representation down in Columbus that is willing to listen to us and pay attention to what's going on to us. So Does anyone have any questions or comments for the representative? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Representative Click, appreciate you being here. And to be clear, you're here on your own. You're not representing Senator
No, sir. I am
Reineke
not
or the
represent-
governor.
I do not represent Senator Reineke.
Okay.
I can only represent myself. I do not pretend to speak for him.
And I get,
Other than to say what I said, that I know his
Right.
intent for this community is always a good intent.
and you might have explained it, but I didn't catch it all. Why did they target 50,000 and less? Why didn't they target a larger population?
That would be a question for the Biden administration, because that's their definition. It's not our definition. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. It's a good question, but that's a federal choice, a federal decision.
And if these two sponsors wouldn't have brought this up to the Senate and the House of Representatives, it would have never happened, correct?
You would not receive any money.
Oh,
We have to, when the money comes to the state, we have to appropriate it to the
okay.
different units of government that are, and areas that are going to utilize it.
So it was 3.4, and someone changed it to 1.8, and I'm still a little fuzzy
So
on
I think, just to use a colloquialism, I guess, I think that's kind of, counting your chickens before they're hatched. Because initially, someone told me recently, which I did not realize this, that Ohio is only one of 3 states that have counties. So I did not research that, so if you find out a different number, but that's what I was told by another state representative. And so the initial guidance from the federal government seemed a little bit unclear, a little foggy, a little muddy. And so I believe people who are calculating what you would get, so there's only one amount that comes in. There's one amount that comes in. And when they begin dividing that up and proportioning that out, they were not counting townships as NEUs. And so then that's where they calculated, and they came up with the 3.45 million. Then when guidance came from the federal government that clarified, yes, townships are included and you are required to include them. Well, now there were more people grabbing at that same piece of pie. And so that meant that everyone's slices got smaller of what you were going to get. But it had never been completely appropriated. That was an estimate that someone had prepared that you were in good faith operating off of. Yes, sir. Councilman Perkins.
Did everyone's slices actually get smaller? Or did just populations under 50,000 get smaller? That's what you just said. So did, Columbus or Cincinnati or whomever, whatever other cities that are larger than us, did their slice get smaller too?
So this is an assumption on my part.
That's the real question I think we all
yeah.
want to know.
My assumption is yes, because you're looking at, and I don't know what the numbers add up, but let's say, okay, in the first estimate, you're counting, 4,000 entities. Right. And then, oh wait, we're including townships. Now we're counting 7,000 entities. And so it is divided up based on population.
Okay.
So they are probably hurting maybe, I'm guessing based on the data I have, they're probably hurting just as much as you are, if not more.
Okay.
Because
And if that's the case, I think
their
that's
slice
more
was bigger to
understanding that.
begin with.
Right.
So that means by percentage, they're going to be losing probably more than you. Would
Okay.
be my estimate. But that's a very good question, sir.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more what most of us were wondering. I was under the assumption that those larger populations didn't change from the initial count.
there
And
is,
those populations
and,
under 50,000 got cut.
I can look into that a little bit more for you because I think there is also a classification for, and I can't remember the exact designation, for metropolitan cities. So they actually may be in a different category, and it may
Of
not
course.
affect them.
Of course they'd get more help.
Yeah, again, whichever the case, it's out of my control. But the more I'm thinking about that and some of the reading that I do, there is another acronym that covers the metropolitan, so they may not suffer as much as you. I'm sorry for that.
No, that's to be expected.
I'd be interested to find out if Columbus got cut.
Yeah, I would love to know.
I will try to do some
There's never,
research and see what I
just
can
remember
find
this.
out. Yes, sir.
There's never a recession in Columbus, ever.
Right?
The rest of us are paying the tab down there on a continual basis.
I understand that.
One of my pet peeves. Anybody else? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Thank you. As you were speaking, I kept kind of thinking the same thing that while we were joking around about a similar thing before the meeting started. But the difference was we'd been meeting, our traffic study people had been meeting for months. They then presented it to us. It was in the paper. We had open meetings. It was on Facebook and stuff. So I think what our irritation was and why we contacted you was we had no idea. You know, we would have appreciated a phone call saying, hey, guys, it looks like you're gonna get cut a little bit, here's why. Because we're not gonna sit there and read those. Did you read them before you became a representative?
No, ma'am.
So,
You have to
We're
have a
not gonna
pretty
be-
boring life to read that.
exactly. So our hope is that you would have told us that. And so that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and I certainly understand that. And I guess what I would say is I'm not always aware of every single thing that happens. You know, I don't read every article in the paper. I don't know, I can't watch every, city council meeting or village council meeting. I do try to stay abreast. And I think Mayor Mons will confirm this, that every time I see him, I say, is there anything you need? What can I do for you? And so I think it's something that, it caught me off guard as much as it caught. If I knew that you were going to be receiving less than what you anticipated, I would have certainly brought that to your attention. But again, it's the primary sponsor. So it's the primary sponsor, and there's a joint sponsor of this bill who, in the finance committee, who might have been able to foresee this coming. But people who are serving on other committees really would not have seen this coming. And I apologize for that. I wish I did see it, because I would have certainly said, hey, Mayor Mons, here's something you might want to be looking at. I would certainly have your best interest and be looking out for you to do that. But there are so many wheels that are turning down there. I don't think you understand it until you're there. And you get this notification, and you get so many people wanting you to co-sponsor bills. There's bills that I would have co-sponsored that I didn't even see coming sometimes. And okay, we're voting on this today. Okay, what am I voting on today? And you got to do a quick study on it sometimes to know exactly what it is. But I certainly, and like I said, I certainly understand your frustration. It makes sense to me. And that's why I'm here to try to explain it to you the best that I can.
Appreciate you coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I may only have one more question. You mentioned the date of July 25th, which is roughly 3 weeks ago. Just envisioning a township getting $1.8 million into their coffers. They weren't ready for this. They haven't been planning for it. If they don't spend the full amount, does it go back to the state? Where does that, if they don't spend it?
So I don't know that, again, I don't know what the numbers the townships can expect. I don't know if the township is getting 1.8
Oh, okay,
million.
all right.
It's not like they're taking 1.8 from you and giving it to one township. It's all of the entities splitting this based on their population.
Okay.
So I cannot tell you how much they are going to get. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you where that goes. I wish I could.
Can you find out and give me your cell phone number and I can
Yes, sir. I can.
sleep, maybe not tonight, but
Well, I
After I-
won't find out tonight.
after I talk to you.
All right.
Might be one guy you don't want.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone except for Councilman Jones can have it.
All right. Okay, anybody else? Anybody else? Mayor?
Oh, man.
Yeah, Representative, I just want to thank you again for coming. It's really appreciated. And I can verify that you did, because I ran into you, what was it, a couple of days after the bill passed, and you asked the question you might have regretted at the time, saying, is there anything I can do for Tiff? And I said, oh, as a matter of fact.
That is true.
And I kind
True
of
story.
let Gary have it a little bit, and you didn't know at the time that this was included. So he is being completely honest. He didn't have any idea ahead of time with that. So what I would say is, please, if the money does come back, make sure it comes to us first, since it was originally intended for it, and don't let the governor take it and spend it, because I don't have much confidence in what he may spend it on right now. But also, I guess, what I would add is Councilman Yanatuno made a great point, and in the future, if you find things out like this, call us right away and let us know so we're not surprised, because still, the research that I have done, and it's not saying it's any more accurate, was that the state still had some leeway on how much they could have taken, that those were guidelines from the federal government, that they didn't have to follow the exact guideline of how much to give to each township. Yeah, so.
I have some documentation. I
Yeah,
can show you.
yeah, and we can talk about
We can
that
follow up.
offline, but I guess that was where my frustration and some of my fellow mayors that I've talked to was that it was one of those things that, well, it was a guideline that the feds sent out, but as we all know, even with city government, we don't always follow those if we think there's a better plan that can help more people. And I think the struggle here is that a lot of townships aren't going to be able to spend this money. We know we could have in the community and in Tiffin, and we just want to make sure that we get a second bite at that apple if one comes versus it just going back to the state and being dumped into who knows what program that probably will never benefit Tiffin. And if so, it's going to be like Councilman Fote said, it's probably going to go to benefit, you know, Columbus or Cleveland, one of the big C's in the state of Ohio, because that seems to be anytime there's extra money, it just somehow finds its way to one of the big C's in the state of
You
Ohio.
have my promise that I will follow up on that.
Please do.
And as you mentioned, the first notice that I had, the first red flag I had came from you.
Yeah, you had no idea. Yeah.
And sometimes that's how it happens because again, you know, I went back and researched. I even talked to my, my chief of staff. I only have one staff member, so he's the chief. But he feels good when I call him chief of staff. And so I asked him, I said, did anyone email us on HB 168? Did we get anything from anyone? Because things, as you know, legislation does change over time. I said, was there anyone, was the Mayor's Alliance or anyone else, the Municipal League, did anyone send us an email and say, don't support this or this needs to be changed? And I had nothing until you did your job as mayor and you said, hey, I think you might have taken that from us. I said, really? And so that's where we begin to proceed to start to try to look into it. So thank you for your kindness. Yes, sir.
I just have one question. How many pages was the bill?
It is, here, let me look. It is 8 pages long. Yes, sir. And I can leave this copy with you if you'd like it.
I was just curious if it was like 100 pages and he's buried.
It's riveting. It's riveting.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Representative Click, while we have you here, just be very interested to know what a typical day is like at the State House for you.
Oh, wow. Every day is a little bit different, just to be honest. I'm looking forward to when session begins because I'll get a rest because I think I've been busier on recess than in session. Sometimes people think that's a vacation. I tell everyone recess isn't as I remember it when I was in elementary school. I've been trying to do a lot of constituent work. But a typical day, so for me, I usually head down there on Thursday morning early and I get into the office, meet with my chief of staff and you know, he updates me on some things that are going on. We'll have some meetings. Sometimes we have in-person meetings, people coming to see us, talk to us about different things, lobby us on different bills and so forth. Sometimes it's a Zoom meeting. We're also meeting with each other and collaborating and talking about, hey, I've got this bill coming. You know, would you mind co-sponsoring it? Would you do this? Would you do that? We have committee meetings. I'm on 4 committees. I'm on primary and secondary education, behavioral health and recovery supports, energy and natural resources, and families, aging, and human services. And so we need to prep ourselves on the bills that are coming through our committee so that we can ask intelligent questions, especially so if someone's there testifying today or on that day. And so we listen to testimony, we engage, we ask questions. For most bills, there is, first thing that happens is sponsor testimony. Second thing that happens is typically opponent or proponent testimony, followed by opponent testimony. And so you usually have at least 3 hearings on most bills, aside from road designations and things like that, that are pretty simple. And then sometimes in that 3rd meeting, you'll vote on the bill. Sometimes you'll have up to 5 or 6 hearings on the bill, depending. Then also you're working on writing your bills. So if I have a bill that I want to write that I think is something that should be accomplished, I will write down all the parameters of everything that I would like to see in this bill. Then I sent it off to LSC, the Legislative Services Commission. They draft it all up in the legalese and they send it back to me. I look at it and say, does this really say what I wanted it to say? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it's close. Sometimes they miss one thing or two things. Sometimes they miss the whole intent. Not usually, but sometimes. And so then we look at that. We start talking to people. We share it with other people. We ask for co-sponsors. We submit it, and then sometimes we send it back for what's called a sub-bill or a substitute bill, like, because instead of because we can amend it if it's something small. Sometimes the changes are so big, you just put it in for a whole new substitute bill. And that has to go through committee, be approved through committee and so forth. And then, of course, we'll have a caucus meeting. And in caucus, usually we're talking about the bills that are coming up. Maybe it might be bills that are coming up that day, maybe coming up the next day. We don't usually get too far ahead of ourselves, and the sponsors will talk in caucus about the bill, any objections and things like that. Kind of take a straw poll on that bill, talking about any other issues that relate to that caucus. And caucus usually takes us right up to session, which is obviously where we vote on different things. And usually it doesn't get above the line and brought up in session unless the speaker is confident that it's going to pass.
Okay. You mentioned, that's fascinating with the proponent and opponent testimony and introduction. Do you hear like committee reports? Like, for example, Councilman Perry gave the Law and Community Planning report a little bit earlier, because I imagine do you happen to know off the top of your head how many committees there are in the House?
I do not. I'm gonna guess 15 or 20. I could be off. But here's one thing that you can do, is you can go, and this may help you on certain issues, is you can go to ohiohouse.gov, and there you can look up all of the members. You can look up me. I mean, you can contact me through my official channels that way, but you all can use unofficial channels if you like. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. But you can also look at legislation, so you can see every bill that has been introduced. You can also see what committee it's in. And so if there's a bill, so like HB 168, when you saw that introduced, you could say, I want to follow, or maybe you see something else like that. You say, I want to follow this and make sure it stays true to what it says, or find any red flags. There's a link in the upper right-hand side that says track this bill. And then you can register. You don't have to give your name and email and all that good stuff. And track that bill. And then anytime that bill moves or changes, you should get an email that tells you that something changed. So you can follow a bill. You can go look at other committees and see what bills are in each committee. You can go to my page there and you can see what bills I'm the primary sponsor on. You can also see what bills I have co-sponsored. And so there's really a treasure trove of information. You can go to a committee. So for instance, which is what I did, when you sent the resolution out for me to come, I went back and I said, well, let me go see what happened in committee. Let me listen to the testimony. So you go there and you listen to the testimony, and the difference about watching it on the Ohio channel versus going and reading written testimony is after a person gives testimony, it's sort of like what's happening now. Then you can, ask questions. And sometimes there's more information in the back and forth, just like there is here, than there is in the actual written testimony. Because the committee members will ask some leading questions, or they'll ask some, depending on if they're for it or if they're against it, they'll ask questions based on that. And so you get some dialogue and more information. So I went back to watch all of that to see if anyone had brought up any of these questions in committee, and no one did. But any bill that you have, so it may be just something you're personally interested in. It may not have anything to do with Tiffin City Council. You can go through there and you can find every bill. You can watch every testimony. I mean, one of the great things that happened recently was that we put, cameras in every committee room. And so every committee is live streamed, and every session is live streamed, but that's been going on for a while. But every committee is live streamed. And so you can watch a committee while it's taking place, or you can go back later and watch it. So sometimes I can't make it. Sometimes once or twice I've had committees like overlapping. If I need to, I can go back and watch what happened after I left. So there's a number of resources on the website to help you follow. Again, You know, some of it's interesting, you know, sometimes some people kind of geek out about that stuff, and you can do that if you really want to. Yeah, I see his eyes are going, maybe. But certainly, if you're looking for information, you can go back and find that information. There's just a lot of information and resources that are available to you on the State of Ohio website.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry that I give long answers.
No.
That's the pastor in me.
No, that's,
Councilman Gillig.
thank you, Mr. President. I'd be fascinated to see if we could explore further, you know, how we can best collaborate with Representative Click and Senator Reineke on these sorts of affairs. You know, sometimes I feel like my focus is pretty solely on what's happening in Tiffin, but it might be nice to maybe figure out some ways we can better all work together.
Let me extend an invitation to you. If you would ever like to come down as individually or even as a group and visit the State House, we'll make sure you get a tour. And if you come on the right day, we can let you sit in and watch a committee meeting if you prefer to, if you wish to, and even sit in on session. Sit up in the gallery and watch session and see what happens down there. I'd love to have you as my guests. And like I said, we can get you a tour. We can even, if we plan it right, I can even get you up into the cupola.
Anyone else? Representative Click, thank you
sir.
for your time.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you for clarifying things for us. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work and representing us.
Yes, sir. May I pass out these cards with my number, or would you prefer I wait till after council?
That's fine, you can do it now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Skip it.
You're a quick study, aren't you?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You look on the back, Councilman Jones?
Do not call after 9 PM.
Well, condolences to your cell phone battery when Councilman Jones begins to call.
I'll make sure I'm plugged in.
You better be plugged in.
Unless I want it to end, I'll say,
Bad reception, I'm in the cupola.
thank you for the kind invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for showing up.
Yes.
Anything else, Mayor? Nope. Okay. Anyone have any questions for the mayor? All right. Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
Yes, thank you. Just one item. Resolution 21-13 involves the Ohio Public Works Commission program. And you may note that in the emergency section, there is a blank date because at the time that I prepared this, I was not aware of the date, the deadline for submitting the application. This justifies the reason for the emergency. So I would ask that you, under motions, that you would move to amend Resolution 21-13 by adding 24. It's September 24th, 2021 is the deadline. So that just date needs to be added to the emergency clause in 21-13. Any questions? That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now under written communications.
I have Director of Finance's request for legislation number F21-28 to amend the 2021 Budget Ordinance 21-11 to appropriate funds in the Parks Department budget.
Director of Finance request for legislation F21-28 will be held on file in the clerk's office. Ordinance 21-77 has been prepared for tonight's meeting.
And then we had an addition of the Director of Finance's request for legislation number F21-29 to amend the 2021 Budget Ordinance 21-11 to appropriate funds into the fire claims escrow budget for $28,000.
Finance Director's request for legislation 21-29 will be, we didn't have an ordinance.
We do have
Yeah.
We do? Where is it?
one added today, 21-79,
Oh, I'm sorry.
added this evening.
this will be held on file in the clerk's office. Ordinance 21-79 has been prepared for tonight's meeting. Thank you. I had it in.
And then we have two communications from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for the permits for Pit Stop Convenience Store at 210 North Washington Street and 321 East Perry Street.
These two liquor permits will be forwarded to the Street Sidewalk and Sewer Committee. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our committee has conferred, and we authorize the clerk of council to sign and return this to the Division of Liquor Control. We do not request a hearing.
Okay,
That concludes the written communications.
thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anyone from the attending public who wishes to address council can do so by stepping forward to the podium, signing in, stating your name, and addressing your comments to the President of City Council. Okay. We're now under motions. Councilman Perkins.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for Resolution 21-13 to include the submittal date of September 24th to be added to the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion to amend Resolution 21-13 with a change of date. Is there a second to the motion? Councilman Perry.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We're now under ordinances. Oh, I'm sorry. We're still under resolutions. Thank you.
Amended resolution number 21-13, introduced by Zach Perkins. Resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, State Capital Improvement Program to execute contracts as required and declaring an emergency.
This is the second reading of Resolution 21-13.
Resolution number 21-16, introduced by Ben Gillig. Resolution accepting the amounts and
Perry.
rates as
Job,
determined by the
property,
Budget
Councilman
Commission and
Perkins.
authorizing the
No report at
necessary
this time,
tax
Mr. President.
levies
Thank you.
and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an
benefit the
emergency.
This is the first reading of Resolution 21-16.
Thank you. We have a
Ordinance number
Councilman
21-72, introduced by
Thank you,
Don
Mr. President.
Iannartuno. Ordinance
I'd
authorizing
like
the
to-
sale of 12.318 acres, more or less, of land in Eagle Rock Business Park.
show us,
at
prove to us you're still
$50,000
working
per
on this
acre,
project, right? Or
net of
you're gonna find another
right-of-ways,
developer, right?
And granting an option
they've
to
done
purchase
that.
an additional
I
adjacent
I have fulfilled that for
8.732
them,
acres, more or
for
less,
4 years.
to Development
Okay, minus
Solutions
this
LLC.
situation with COVID,
was
and even within that
designated as
COVID 6
approved by the
months,
mayor.
I was
This is the
working. at
second
least
reading of
maybe
ordinance
2.5, 3 months of that 6 months
21-72.
we were working. So,
Ordinance
it's a
number
different approach, Steve.
21-73,
Again, good to
introduced
see
by
you again,
Bridget
too.
Boyle.
I know you were part of
Ordinance
the
amending
original team.
2021
Mr. Hayes and
budget
the other
ordinance
team.
number
So,
21-11 to appropriate
approach could be,
$20,000
we stick
into
to
the
that,
general
okay?
administration budget for property acquisition for the Ellis Street River Bridge project.
This is the second reading of Ordinance 21-73.
Style, I mean, the room grades are not
Ordinance
gonna
number
be
21-76, introduced
all
by
small
Don
businesses-
Iannartuno. Ordinance approving a 3-year contract with the Seneca Industrial and Economic Development Corporation, also known as the Tiffin Seneca Economic Partnership, for a comprehensive economic development program and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of Ordinance 21-76. Councilwoman Iannartuno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask council to suspend the 3-reading rule and ask for immediate passage of 21-76.
We have a motion to suspend the council's 3-reading rules and immediate passage of Ordinance 21-76. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
one of
Thank you. We have a
take
motion and a
place in that
second. Is there any
process. So,
discussion?
and obviously,
based on,
Councilwoman Iannartuno.
As I stated earlier,
many
we're
is that?
operating without a
Have not been
contract at
fully
this time, and so that's why we're suspending the 3-reading rule.
the background.
Do we trust these
the
people?
first
I think so.
comment I made,
Existing.
building gets built.
Any
Very
other comments? Legitimate comment.
variables there, but pretty, and I
Ask the
felt
clerk
I
to
was
call the
dictated
vote
at
on the
this point.
suspension, please.
The
Councilman Perkins.
agreement,
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
When was it officially
The
announced?
suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. We'll now vote on the emergency.
Councilman Perkins,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 6-0. We will now vote on the passage of ordinance 21-76.
Councilmember Perkins,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-76 passes with a vote of 6-0. Now you can continue business, David.
I gotta sign it first.
Ouch.
Ordinance number 21-77, introduced by Ben Gillig. Ordinance amending the 2021 budget ordinance number 21-11 to appropriate $5,000 into the Parks Department budget for wages for pool employees.
This is the first reading of ordinance 21-77. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask for council suspension of our three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-77.
We have a motion to suspend council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-77. Is there a second? Councilman Perkins.
I'd like to second, please.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Gillig.
Yeah, very briefly, with the wonderful usage of the pool this summer with the mayor and city administration deciding it would be free, we did have to add lifeguards, and I imagine they would like to be paid.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? All right, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Perkins,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 6-0, and we'll now vote on the passage of ordinance 21-77.
Councilman Perkins,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-77 passes with a vote of 6-0.
Ordinance number 21-78, introduced by Don Yanatuno. Ordinance establishing a City of Tiffin Municipal Arts Commission and adopting provisions for its organization and operation.
This is the first reading of ordinance 21-78.
Ordinance number 21-79, introduced by Ben Gillig. Ordinance amending the 2021 budget ordinance number 21-11 to appropriate $28,000 into the fire claims escrow budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 21-79. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request suspension of council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-79.
We have a motion to suspend council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-79. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Gillig.
Finance Director Kaufman, this is more or less, we're kind of like a clearinghouse for this. You know, this is money that's going to come in and go right out. So we just want to kind of get it accounted for.
Exactly. Anytime we take any money in, proper accounting is to actually show that on the books. So we have to show it coming in and then going out.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? I'll now ask the clerk to call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Perkins,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 6-0. We will now vote on the passage of ordinance 21-79.
Councilman Perkins,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Leopard.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-79 passes with a vote of 6-0.
That concludes the ordinances.
Thank you. We're now under other business. Anyone have anything? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Unhappy news. We are approved to do Safety Week again this year, as long as COVID doesn't sidetrack it once again. We're all systems go. We're all excited. Everything's sent out. We're ready to roll. And very excited that we're back at it again, September 13th through the 17th. And so if anybody's listening and they have a K-3 student in Tiffin City Schools or Calvert Catholic Schools, we will be happy to help teach them about safety.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I would like to first thank the mayor for offering his condolences on Mom's passing. It's greatly appreciated, as well as other council members that have reached out. Greatly appreciated, but I almost kind of want to piggyback on what the mayor said. You know, our population's grown. because this is a great place to live. You know, Mom came here in 1972 from Van Wert, Ohio, and stayed, obviously, for, you know, the next 50-some-odd years, and loved it here. And, you know, since her passing, you know, our treasured Ritz Theater has put a Facebook post about her because she was in 26 productions of the Ritz Players. The local businesses that have helped us, because far too many of us know just the barrage of things that hits after losing a parent. But the local businesses that have just helped us make this process so much easier. First 2 cards I received in the mail were from local businesses. And, you know, my sister and niece, you know, went out, you know, my niece is 10, is taking it pretty hard, and at a girls' day, and at both establishments they visited, the owner came up and picked out the tab and told them how sorry they were. And, you know, those things don't happen everywhere, so there's a reason why people choose to stay here and why people want to come.
Mom was a great lady.
Thank you.
Councilman Perry?
Yeah, just been trying to think, you said 224 and 53 intersection is gonna be out. So those people in that subdivision, are they gonna have to go all the way
The upper,
down 52? Down 52 or out to 90 to get to where they need to go?
Yeah. Yep, unless there's a road that I'm unaware of.
Right.
Well, unless they
That's
got
what
an
I'm
ATV.
racking my brain, trying to think of.
Cut through the airport.
Yeah. Councilman Leopard said I could cut through that.
Sounds like a good headline for the AT tomorrow.
anyone else? Dale?
Response for Councilman Leopard. I have consulted with electrician Shannon, who said, yeah, he was down in Washington, but he doesn't remember an antenna. He was probably working on the traffic signal.
Seeing things.
Was it raining? Did he have an umbrella?
Ben Franklin was with him.
All right, anything for the good of the order? All right, well, again, Ben, our condolences.
Thank you.
God's continued blessings on you and your family, city of Tiffin and all of you. We're adjourned. Good night.